Over the years, I've found that the more unique a game is, the better it tends to hold up. In a decade or so, a generic first-person shooter with the usual smattering of mechanics is gonna be more or less completely forgotten, lost to the much stronger memory of the games that did that same thing better. But even the best games in established genres often suffer from the fact that newer games come out and do whatever it was that they did much better. But games like Killer 7 don't have that problem. Games so unique, weird, and different that it's hard to compare them to anything, even over 10 years later, despite their often myriad flaws. When it first came out, by far the most striking thing about Killer 7 was its graphical style, and amazingly enough, given its age, it is still the thing that stands out the most. But the graphics aren't the only stylish thing this game has to offer. In fact, pretty much everything about its design is stylish. The characters, the dialogue, the story, and it all comes together in a simultaneously fascinating and extremely confusing way. I only had the weakest grasp on what was even going on for the first few hours of the game, and it took much longer than that to really figure out what was happening in the story. Of course, the problem with honing in on that stylish aspect of the game is that it often comes at the expense of other elements, and that's definitely true of this game. Beyond the insanity of the core concept and the environment, the diverse upgrade trees and wide variety of characters to choose from, at some point you have to come to terms with the fact that this game is, mechanically speaking, really just a rail shooter. The on-rails nature of the movement is endlessly frustrating, having to constantly pick which path you have to take from a clunkily designed menu instead of just steering towards it is an enormous pain, and there's a loading screen every single time you enter a new room. But the worst part of Killer 7 is the part of it that takes up the vast majority of the gameplay, actually shooting things. Aiming at the weak spots the game wants you to can be a real pain in the ass, though it never really made me all that mad thanks to the ability to revive dead characters and the relative ease with which I found myself through the game as a whole. But while Killer 7 might be sort of a nightmare to play at times, it is absolutely worth the trouble. Beyond the obvious, incredible sense of style the game has, it also has a set of extremely intriguing, if not particularly well executed mechanics around the collection and usage of blood from the game's enemies. This blood system rewards you for taking risks by allowing you to level up the selectable characters or to make use of special abilities that they might have. But the biggest challenge this game faced at its release wasn't necessarily mediocre mechanics. It was just the fact that a lot of people tend to throw around the word weird or different like it's a bad thing, like every game needs to conform to what we think of as video games. But with games like Killer 7, the times it tries to conform, when it tries its hardest to be a quote-unquote true video game, is when it's at its weakest. But its commitment to its core weirdness, its stylistic overtones, carry it through the weak and unsatisfying shooting mechanics to make this a game that shines through the years almost as brightly as it did when it was first released.